go ahead and begin. A meeting of the MAG information, where we will begin with the magic meeting, is my understanding. Is that the way things are agendized, Derek?
Yeah, correct, sir.
Okay, thank you. A meeting of the MAG Information Center Board of Directors is now called to order. For those around the table, please turn on your microphone when speaking so that those of you on the phone can hear you. For those participating via Zoom, please remember to unmute your device before speaking and mute when you're not speaking to create a positive experience for all attendees. Phone participants should use *6 to mute and unmute and *9 to raise their hand. Thank you for attending today's meeting. The MAG public comment process provides opportunities for members of the public to comment on items scheduled on today's agenda or on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction. 3 opportunities are provided for public comment, including call to the audience, consent agenda, and action items to be heard. MAG also provides the opportunity for members of the public to submit written comments via the MAG website prior to the meeting, as long as the comments are received at least 1 hour prior to the posted start time for the meeting. If you would like to comment at today's meeting, please fill out a white request to speak card located on the information counter by the door. Please be sure to indicate the item for which you want to speak and give it to a designated MAG staff member. If you parked in the garage, remember to validate your ticket. The parking stamp is available on the information counter. For those who purchased a transit ticket to come to the meeting, please see staff for a ticket. Please note that hearing assisted devices are available from MAG staff. All right, I apologize for not being present, and so I'm not sure who's there from staff, but would staff please take a roll call of all participants to establish our quorum?
Thank you, Chair and members of the MAG Information Center Board of Directors. I will go down the list of members. If you are attending virtually, please unmute and indicate if you are present. Mayor Weiss. Mayor Gallego.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Wires.
I'm here.
Thank you. Mayor Peterson.
I'm here.
Thank you. Mayor Hartke.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Hermosillo.
Here.
Thank you. And our chair is present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. So please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our next agenda item is call to the audience. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda or that are on the agenda for discussion and not for action. 15 minutes will be provided for the call to the audience agenda item unless the committee requests an exception to this limit. Members of the public who are attending in person may deliver their comments from the table at the microphone. You have up to 3 minutes to complete your comments. A timer is provided to assist you. When the light on the timer changes from green to yellow, you have 1 minute remaining. If the light turns red, a buzzer will sound, meaning your allotted time has expired. Staff, how many requests to speak have we received for this agenda item?
Chair and members of the MAG Information Center Board of Directors, we did not receive any public comments for this item today.
All right, thank you. Our next item is approval of the September 13, 2021 meeting minutes. Does any member of the MAG Information Center Board of Directors have questions or comments on the minutes? Hearing none, could I have a motion to approve the September 13th, 2021 meeting minutes?
This is Les Peterson. I'll move to accept the meeting minutes.
Thank you, Mayor Peterson. Who would like to make a second?
Second, Mayor Hartke.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry if I missed somebody there, but I have a motion made by Mayor Peterson, seconded by Mayor Hartke. Staff, will you please take a roll call?
Thank you, Chair and members of the MAG Information Center Board of Directors. I will go down the list of members attending virtually. Please unmute and indicate how you vote. Mayor Peterson?
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor Hartke?
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor Hermosillo? Mayor Hermosillo?
I'm a yes.
Thank you. And Chair, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
How about us? We need to do a voice vote for those in the room, please.
Oh,
Okay. Thank you. For those in the room, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 sorry.
Are there any opposed? Thank you. So between the virtual and those in person, that was a unanimous vote. Item 5 on our agenda is an update on the projects MAGIC has been working on and anticipated future projects. MAG Regional Analytics Director Anbuhav Bagley will provide the update. Thank you. I'm sorry. Before I thank you, we'll look forward to hearing your update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the MAG Information Center Board of Directors. I'll just provide you a very quick update on the work on what we do. Just as a reminder, the MAG Information Center, or MAGIC as we call it, really is kind of the consulting arm of MAG, being a 501c3. It's basically the idea is doing work, utilizing our data, analytics, projects, mapping capabilities, etc., above and beyond on what is in the approved work program. So a lot of times we do small projects that are not in the work program for our member agencies. These are quick projects, but the projects that we come in and discuss at MAGIC and do work through MAGIC are really larger scale projects that take over time. And that's where we come back to the board and discuss this with the board and make sure that we're good to go on these projects. At this time, there are 2 projects that we've been working on. One, we've been assisting Arizona Commerce Authority on an ongoing basis with data analysis, developing custom analytics to help their business attraction processes. And the second one really is the big project that we've been working on for the past few years, is the one working with Arizona Department of Education and Read on Arizona. And so Read on Arizona is all about early education. And so we've been working on helping develop a enhanced online interactive tool called Maplet. Maplet 1.0 has been going on for a number of years, about 7 or 8 years. Maplet 2.0 is the big one that we're currently working on. And actually we'll be presenting that to ADE leadership next week. So we're on a big roll on that. So the whole idea is building on our education system, highlighting where the issues are and conducting some major analysis related to that. We've been doing a lot of behind the scenes analysis for ADE on utilizing funding, et cetera, and how does that get distributed across 2 different districts and schools over time. I'd be happy to take any questions, Mr. Chair and the board on this. This item is for information and discussion only.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Mr. Bagley? All right. Thank you very much for that informative report. Again, that item was on the agenda for information and discussion only. Our next item on the agenda is a request to accept up to $20,000 in funding from the Boys and Girls Club of the Valley. MAG Regional Analytics Director, again, Mr. Anbuhav Bagley, will provide more details on this request. Mr. Bagley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the MAGIC Board of Directors. In 2005, I was an analyst and I'd worked on a project on helping Boys and Girls Club conducting analysis on their current needs and future locations. And looks like whatever we did made a lot of sense. They have come back to us with a request to update that analysis, and they're providing us with a lot of data on existing usage, what's going on at the clubs within the Valley itself, and see how that has been impacted by the pandemic and how things have changed over time, and then help identify areas where they should look at future growth and expansion of their facilities and services. So it's a very exciting project because it also ties in with the work that we've been doing with Arizona Department of Education and Read on Arizona, because at the end, one could see a lot of synergies between the current work that we're doing with early education and this group. And so we are looking and staff's requesting to accept up to $20,000 in funding to conduct this additional analysis and provide this work to Boys and Girls Club of the Valley, and then amend our biennial work program to accept this funding. Mr. Chair, members of the Board of Directors, I'd be happy to take any questions on this request.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Go
Mayor
ahead.
Gallego.
Yes, Mayor Gallego.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand that the Boys and Girls Club is now going to have a large expansion related to some American Rescue Plan dollars that they are receiving, including for summer programs. Is this related or separate?
I'm not too sure, Mayor Gallego. I've not gotten the details of those discussions. They've provided us some data, but we didn't get into how many facilities they're looking at and what programs. The first step really is to understand who are the children that are availing the existing programs, what are they doing and how that has changed, and then kind of go from there. They're looking at a multi-phased approach because at the end, they would like us to build them an interactive tool and all of that. That's where I've kind of see synergies with other projects that we've got going on.
Wonderful. An interactive tool for their planning of future locations.
Yes, Mayor.
Look forward to supporting them, the vote, and happy to make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Prior to that, are there any other questions for Mr. Bagley? All right, hearing none, we have a motion for approval from Mayor Gallego. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that. This is Les Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor Peterson. And I apologize. Can you, the staff member that's taking the roll call, can you identify yourself? I apologize.
This is Shane Schultz.
Okay, Shane, thank you. Would you proceed with taking the roll call, please?
Sure, I think we need to do a voice vote for those in the room first, though.
All right, let's do that. All in favor, all that are present in the room in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Are there any opposed? All right, thank you. Shane, please proceed with the roll call.
Thank you, Chair and members of the MAG Information Center Board of Directors. I will go down the list of members. Please unmute and indicate how you vote. Mayor Peterson.
I vote yes.
Thank you. Mayor Hartke.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor Hermosillo.
Yes.
Thank you. And Chair, how do you vote?
Yes.
Is there anyone that I missed? Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you. Item 7 on our agenda for this meeting is requests for future agenda items. Are there any requests for future agenda items from the membership? Thank you. Item 8 are comments or announcements from the membership. Do anyone wish to make a comment or an announcement?
Mr. Chair, this is Les Peterson. At
Yes,
our
Mayor.
last meeting, I announced that I would not be running for re-election. We have an election in Carefree this year. And this morning, I received an email from Nathan Pryor, and let me read it, it's very brief. Are you planning to continue your service on the MAG Executive Committee? If so, can you please email us a letter of interest? And then Mr. Pryor continues, you were able to ascend to the treasurer position. We recognize that your mayoral term is ending, but you can continue serving on the MAG Executive Committee until the end of your time as mayor. The end of my time as mayor is December 6th of this year. So I really am seeking input if it would be more convenient or expedient for MAG or the executive committee to make a change in the June-July period. Now, I would be delighted to continue serving and will write a letter to Nathan if that's the input I receive to request a continuation through December 6th. But I would also, if it's better for you, be certainly willing to step down fairly soon.
All right, thank you, Mayor Peterson. Because this is not on the agenda for discussion, I think we'll maybe we won't debate the pros and cons of how early we say goodbye to you, but we'll look forward to Max. Thank you for clarifying that, and I'm sure that that will provoke further discussion offline. But thank you for your service. Hopefully we'll get plenty of opportunities to say that in person before the time is up.
Well, thank you.
Any other comments or announcements from the membership? All right, thank you. Then business is now concluded. The MAG Information Center Board of Directors meeting is adjourned. We will now move to the Executive Committee meeting. It's going to take me just a minute to get to that document, I'm afraid. All right, a meeting of the MAG Executive Committee is now called to order. For those around the table, please turn on your microphone when speaking so that those on the phone can hear you. For those participating via Zoom, please remember to unmute your device before speaking and mute when you're not speaking to create a positive experience for all attendees. Phone participants should use *6 to mute and unmute and *9 to raise their hand. Thank you for attending today's meeting. The MAG public comment process provides opportunities for members of the public to comment on items scheduled on today's agenda or on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction. 3 opportunities are provided for public comment, including call to the audience, consent agenda, and action items to be heard. MAG also provides the opportunities for members of the public to submit written comments via the MAG website prior to the meeting, as long as the comments are received at least 1 hour prior to the posted start time for the meeting. If you would like to comment at today's meeting, please fill out a white request to speak card located on the information counter. Please be sure to indicate the item for which you want to speak and give it to a designated MAG staff member. If you parked in the garage, remember to validate your ticket. Parking validations are available on the information table in the hallway. For those who purchased a transit ticket to come to the meeting, please see staff for a ticket. Please note that hearing assisted devices are available from MAG staff. Shane, would you please take a roll call of all participants in this meeting?
Thank you, Chair and members of the Executive Committee. I will go down the list of members. If you are attending virtually, please unmute and indicate if you are present. Mayor Weiss.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Gallego.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Wires.
I'm here.
Thank you. Mayor Peterson.
I'm here.
Thank you. Mayor Hartke.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Hermosillo.
Here.
Thank you. And our chair is present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Our next item is call to the audience. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda or that are on the agenda for discussion and not for action. 15 minutes will be provided for the call to the audience agenda item unless the committee requests an exception to this limit. Members of the public who are attending in person may deliver their comments from the table at the microphone. You have up to 3 minutes to complete your comments. A timer is provided to assist you. When the light on the timer changes from green to yellow, you have 1 minute remaining. If the light turns red, a buzzer will sound, meaning your allotted time has expired. Shane, have we received any requests to speak on this agenda item?
Chair and members of the Executive Committee, we did not receive any public comments for this item today. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda. This will be to approve items 3A through 3E on the consent agenda. Does any member of the Executive Committee have questions or request a presentation on any of these items? All right, prior to approval of the consent agenda, do we have any members of the public who wish to comment on any items on consent? Please note you will have 3 minutes total to comment on consent items. Is there anyone either present in the meeting or that has indicated earlier a request to speak on the consent agenda?
Chair and members of the Executive Committee, no public comments were received for the consent agenda today. Thank you.
Okay. If that's the case, could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved, Kevin Hartke.
Second, Ken Weiss.
Mayor Hermosillo. Can you
Sorry,
get
Alexis.
It's okay.
We'll go with Mayor Hermosillo for the second and Mayor Hartke for the motion. All that are present in the meeting, would you please indicate if you're in favor of the motion by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Thank you. Shane, will you conduct the roll call for those participating virtually?
Thank you, Chair and members of the Executive Committee. I will go down the list of members. Please unmute and indicate how you vote. Mayor Weiss.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Peterson.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor Hartke.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor Hermosillo.
Yes.
Thank you. And Chair, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. Item 4 on our agenda is reassessing regional homelessness goals. MAG Human Services Planner Katie Gentry will give a presentation on this item. Katie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee for this opportunity to provide an update on the point in time count subpopulations, as well as an update to Pathways Home and how we are addressing the outcomes of the point in time count. Next slide, please. So to give an overview of my presentation, I will start by giving you a breakdown of the point in time count subpopulation findings, and then talk through next steps in response to these findings, as well as how it ties to Pathways Home. Next slide, please. As you know, in January, we completed the point in time count, which included over 500 volunteers from across all of the jurisdictions and included both an unsheltered and a sheltered count. The following slides will walk you through some of the subpopulation data of these individuals that were encountered during the count. Next slide, please. In 2022, there were 420 total veterans encountered. The blue dotted line represents the number of sheltered veterans, totaling 297, and the orange dotted line shows the number of unsheltered veterans, totaling 123. The solid line is our overall total of 420. Next slide, please. Likewise, we found 624 total unaccompanied youth, which would be in that ages 18 to 24 population. The blue dotted line shows the number of sheltered youth totaling 194, and the orange dotted line shows the number of unsheltered youth totaling 430. Next slide, please. There were 550 families totally counted in this point in time count. The blue dotted line shows the number of sheltered families totaling 485, and the orange dotted line shows the number of unsheltered families totaling 65. Next slide, please. Finally, we have the number of people experiencing chronic homelessness totaling 1,287. The blue dotted line shows the number of sheltered people experiencing chronic homelessness totaling 628. And the orange dotted line shows the number of unsheltered people experiencing chronic homelessness totaling 659. Chronic homelessness is defined as having a disabling condition, as well as being homeless for either more than a year consistently or 4 times in the last 3 years, adding up to more than 1 year. Next slide, please. Additionally, we survey individuals during the point in time count to understand some of these populations. These are all self-reported by the individual, and individuals could answer yes to multiple circumstances. In 2022, there were 1,022 who identified as having a mental illness, 1,104 who identified as having a substance use disorder, 135 with HIV or AIDS, and 470 actively fleeing domestic violence. Next slide, please. So what are we doing about these in relationship to our work within the continuum of care and in context to Pathways Home? Next slide, please. We have a number of work groups that are actively meeting to address these subpopulations, including a veteran work group, a youth work group targeting 18 to 24, a family case conferencing, a chronic homelessness work group, and a domestic violence and coordinated entry work group. Next slide, please. In addition, a number of activities within Pathways Home are working to address these subpopulations. As we discussed at Regional Council in April, we have a set of housing targets that we have already exceeded. We are adjusting these housing targets based off of the increased point in time counts, as well as the increased number of individuals that we have seen within the homeless response system. We will be reevaluating these on a quarterly basis and presenting these targets to you all moving forward. However, we don't want to lose sight of the successes and celebrate the units that we have created. We have more than doubled what our targets were initially projecting. And as such, we've joined House America as a region, and through House America, we not only want to recognize the work of individual cities, but how we are coming together as a whole and using American Rescue Plan dollars to specifically address the housing challenges in our community. Next slide, please. Pathways Home also identifies the challenges that many individuals who are unsheltered are facing and getting individuals connected to the best local services for them. The Outreach Collaborative is made up of outreach teams from across the region where they're working together to map where teams are doing outreach, provide training for the resources available in our community, and connect individuals to the right interventions for them. Next slide, please. Thank you for your continued support in both the point in time count and in Pathways Home. I'm happy to answer any questions at this time, or you can reach out to Amy and I at any time. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Katie. Obviously, this item is not an action item, but it is a request to hear from the membership of this committee about, charting a course forward. Obviously, homelessness is a new campaign, a new topic for MAG, and this topic is very dynamic, and we need to be, I think, kind of somewhat flexible as we take this on and learn, kind of develop some best practices for how MAG engages in this. So Speaking for myself, I'll say that I am hopeful that that the consensus from this discussion will be to encourage MAG staff to come back to us with some that for us to revisit our goals. I think it's important that the goals be realistic. So I'm not suggesting that we be too aspirational. I think it's important that we. I'm very grateful and appreciative that we've achieved these goals already in the month of May. So I'm anxious to continue this process of having very realistic goals that are meaningful and not just pie in the sky. But I speaking for myself, I'm hopeful that again the consensus will be that we'll ask staff to come back to us at a regional council meeting with some goals so that we don't coast, for the rest of this year. What are others' thoughts?
Mr. Chair, it's Ken Weiss.
Yes, Mr. Mayor Weiss.
John, I think when we laid out this plan over several months, I think that was a consensus of the regional council that they wanted to be realistic in our goals, but they also wanted the plan to be fluid to adjust to market conditions and how the plan performed. And I would agree with you. I would like to get an update on this and see how we realign these goals and not make them so outlandish that we can never achieve them, but very realistic goals that take into account current market conditions. And I think it's also helpful to kind of see where individual cities are as they contribute to these goals. It gives each individual city, each individual mayor and representative an idea of how they go back to their councils and say, okay, folks, we signed on to this plan. This is how we're performing. And it's not a criticism or a positive, or it's just an update. And this is kind of where we need to go. So I would agree with you. I'd like to kind of come back and revisit those goals.
Thank you, Mayor Weiss. Other discussion?
Mayor, guys, this is Les Peterson. I'm very pleased to see the segmentation. These are almost 4 or perhaps 5 different individual characteristic groups of people that comprise homelessness. And they have different sources of how they get into this situation. And there are different solutions. And to have separate work groups addressing them is outstanding. I'm delighted to see the direction this is taking, and I think it will yield more effective kinds of programs that we can address this with. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Peterson. Any other comments? I'm sorry, I think I spoke over someone. Are there any other comments on this topic?
Yes, Kate Gallego.
Yes, Mayor Gallego.
Wonderful. Wanted to support the great comment from the Mayor of Avondale about individual city goals. I think that is very helpful and something worthy of pursuing. And then with House America, I think Mayor Giles was the first mayor in Maricopa to join it. And I once again followed his lead, but would it be worth making that program, putting that on a future MAG agenda, just so that people I don't know that every mayor is aware. And Katie, you said we have joined as a region?
Sorry, yes, I don't have my microphone on.
Okay.
We have joined forth as a region. We are still working on our goals to have them mirror Pathways Home and acknowledge both the individual cities that are part of that, but also as a region. I think actually Mayor Giles' staff came forward to us and said that really we wouldn't be doing as well as we are doing without the entire region coming together.
And are we the first region to join? Have many regions joined?
We are one of only a few. So I will say that some other regions have joined with their county and a couple of cities, but that we are one of the few that has joined as a full region.
To me, that is worth celebrating. And then this not necessarily related to this particular conversation, but I wanted to understand the data better. If we could go back to slide 20, was looking at the domestic violence data in there. And so obviously we've taken different procedures for how we keep track of the data, but there was also a significant decrease recently in the number of DV cases we saw. Do we think that is a data anomaly or a public policy success, or too soon to tell?
So the biggest change that you'll see is from prior to 2018, it was anytime, the question was specifically worded as, are you a survivor of domestic violence? In 2018, HUD changed the question to, you have to be actively fleeing domestic violence, not just experience domestic violence at any point in your homelessness or prior to homelessness. We are seeing that kind of downward trend. We are working, part of that domestic violence coordinated entry work group is to figure out how can we better serve survivors of domestic violence. So we are seeing a better coordination to serve folks and also to serve folks through homeless services rather than just traditional domestic violence.
So to see 805 in 2019 and then for it to go down during the pandemic is surprising to me, but is that, do we think that is reflective of what happened?
I think it is a combination of reflective of what happened, but also we're not seeing those folks actually flee into the homelessness system. They're actually staying in homes longer, which is potentially unsafer. So we're really, our hotline has been working pretty hand in hand with the homelessness system to figure out where can we place people, because one of the downsides of COVID happening is all of our shelters decreased capacity. So we had less capacity in our domestic violence system to specifically serve people who were ready and willing to move out of the home.
Okay, so it's not good news at all.
No, unfortunately not.
We did try to, at the City of
But-
Phoenix, put more resources in this area, but
I think there now more than ever, we are seeing an increased coordination though. So we are looking to see how can we continue to serve folks who are entering our system and get them connected to trauma-informed care that really makes sense for them rather than just entering our homelessness system, which may not be the most person-centric board for somebody who is fleeing domestic violence.
wonderful, thank you. And I'll join my two colleagues in saying I'm very supportive of reassessing the regional goals and celebrating our success as we do it, but being more ambitious.
Thank you, Mayor Gallego. Other comments? All right, I guess I'll just restate the obvious, which is that the data, I mean, we can't be Pollyannish about this, that the data is still trending in the wrong direction on this topic. But I think it is important that we celebrate the progress that we have seen and that we remain positive in our messaging. And I'm delighted at the resources the MAG is dedicated to this topic. We've got a very talented staff and specifically, on this topic. And I think we're looking forward to you revisiting our strategic plan and coming back to us with some next steps for us to continue to figure out the best way for us to engage on this. So thank you very much. Next item on our agenda, item 5, is a request to amend the fiscal year 2022, fiscal year 2023 biannual planning work program and budget to increase merit-based salary adjustments by an average of 1.5%. MAG Deputy Executive Director Amy St. Peter will provide more details on this request. Amy.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you very much for this opportunity today to consider an increase in the merit-based raises for staff. This agenda item was requested at the conclusion of your last meeting in April. We do very much appreciate your prior approval to add a one-time cost of living adjustment of 5% back in March of this year in response to increasing inflation costs. The concern has been raised as to whether a possible additional adjustment might be considered and might be appropriate in response to ongoing inflation, which continues to rise, particularly in this region. The 7.5% average increase that was approved back in March, this includes both the cost of living as well as the 2.5% merit-based raises, is still below that current inflation rate of 10.9%. As background, our current approved budget does include an average of 3.5% for merit-based raises. And this is in line with what we've given in previous years. When we requested the cost of living adjustment previously, we had dropped the merit-based raises to 2.5% to offset the increase in the cost of living adjustment. As we consider the increasingly tight labor market, as well as increasing inflation costs, we do realize the need to consider increasing the merit-based raise in order to remain competitive in the workplace. We did evaluate the possibility of requesting another cost of living adjustment. The first increase was approved on a one-time basis. In addition, we very much want to approve the the high performance of our staff who are going to extraordinary lengths to continue serving you as our member agencies and to continue serving the needs of the region. And so the option of increasing the merit-based raises aligns well with that position. Of course, retaining high-performing staff is critical to our ability to continue serving you and the region, and it's our priority to continue delivering high-quality, timely work. Offering competitive salaries and being able to reward performance is really helpful to that goal. So as a result, we do respectfully request an increase of an average of 1.5% to the merit-based raises for staff effective this July. This would bring the total merit-based raise that would be available to staff in July to 4%, to an average of 4%. This is just 0.5% higher than what we've currently in the work program when that was first approved, and it's in line basically with what we've given in the past. The total average increase then, including the cost of living as well as merit-based, approved since March, if this were to be approved, would be 9%. We do have funding to accommodate this increase, and we do very much appreciate your consideration of this request. We do have one point of clarification before I conclude. When the last cost of living increase adjustment was approved, that did not include the executive director because his performance review was scheduled for the next month. His performance review last month did result in a 7.5% increase that aligned with staff at the time. And taking action today, the committee may want to clarify whether this proposed request would apply to the executive director or if it applies simply to the rest of staff. I'm available for any questions or feedback that you might have, and we do thank you very much for your consideration of this. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is Mayor Wires.
Yes, Mayor Wires.
A couple questions I have. I'm just a little bit confused. So does all staff get the 5% increase?
So in terms of the cost of living adjustment, the main goal of that was to be able to respond to increasing inflation costs and also to changes in the market. So for example, if someone had been recently hired, we had already taken inflation into account and we had already aligned with the market. And so they were given a prorated proportion of that 5%. Also, in a similar vein, staff who received a mid-year increase in December, we had also taken those inflation rates into account and we had taken the market changes into account as well. So that again was prorated. So that was given, so the 5% was available to staff and then we prorated based on any adjustments that had been recently made that had already addressed inflation in the market.
So it's a long answer for no.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Chair, if I might, my concern was there's 4 or 5 different things all happening at the same time. If somebody's change of class, maybe they moved into a different position, maybe they're doing a more important job. I don't know what the circumstances are here. To me, that's not a pay increase. You might be getting more money, but it's a different job, which in my opinion is not a pay increase. My concern for MAG, along with my city, and I'm sure every other mayor has the exact same concerns, is how do we keep staff? If we're not paying them accordingly, and it's actually backwards from where they were 2 years ago from today because of where the economy is going or where it's not going, however you want to look at it. That is a concern of mine. My concern all along when I spoke about this last time I was here was that everybody, no matter where they're at today, all end up with at least a 7.5. I think we were talking 7.5, 8% increase overall. So we talked about that 2 or 3 weeks ago. I can't remember exactly when, but it seemed like it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. I don't know how we can look at what was back in December or January and compare today. If anybody knew what the economy was going to do 5 months ago, well, then you know what, we're all in the wrong business because you could have made a fortune. So I guess my concern is if not everybody got the pay increase, if they were hired and brought in at a higher amount of money, it's still not a pay increase, or at least what I felt. So I don't know as though I agree with what you've done. You know, my point is pay them what they're worth, pay them the higher amount, because the way the economy is going right now, 6 months from now, we're going to be looking at this all over again. I'd rather keep the people now, keep them happy, and keep moving forward. So for whatever it's worth, that's my opinion.
Thank you very much, Mayor Watt.
Thank you, Mayor Wires. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Executive Committee. the reason why we prorated, we've been hiring people throughout the year. For example, we've hired people in January and February of this year, and in negotiating their salaries, we look at the marketplace, obviously. And so if you think about when we hire somebody, we mark to the market when we hire that person in. And so if we hire somebody, say hypothetically in February, at a rate that at a salary we think is market, then come back and give them the 5% raise that everybody else is getting who have been with the agency throughout the entire fiscal year, just isn't appropriate in my mind either. So it sets up this, if you recently hired, you're actually going to get a little extra increase compared to what longtime employees have. And so once again, we considered the process that we went through to calculate these raises very carefully. And once again, I'm very comfortable in the way we applied it. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Any other discussion on this item? Yes, Mayor Gallego.
Thank you so much. So will the managers of staff have some discretion about how to apply merit raises?
Mr. Chairman, Mayor Gallego, and members of the council, yes, absolutely. Our annual performance review includes an extensive evaluation process where the staff are able to report on their accomplishments, the areas of professional growth that they would like, and then areas and then goal areas for the following fiscal year. We encourage and facilitate ongoing talks about the performance on a yearly basis, on an ongoing basis over the year, but the performance reviews provide a more formal opportunity to document what that progress has been. And the process is that then the supervisors will request a raise, again, if this were approved, to an average of 4%. And so that could be higher, it could be lower throughout the agency. The directors then would submit that request to the executive director and to myself as the deputy executive director. We review those in light of equity throughout the agency, as well as in comparison to the market to ensure that we are remaining competitive. And then the decision would be made with that assessment in mind and looking at the data.
Wonderful. I think that makes sense. We want to give hiring managers the tools to reward excellence, but it's nice to have someone looking agency-wide and making sure we don't have any equity or other concerns, and then rewarding longtime employees makes sense to me. Could you tell us this vote as written, what would be the financial impact and would it come out of reserves?
We do have funding to cover the financial impact, and we can sustain that within the current budget. It would not need to come out of reserves. In terms of the exact dollar amounts, I'm looking to our fiscal director. I'm not sure that we have that estimated right now, but we've looked in general at the funding available, and we are able to cover this.
I'm not sure I understand how it's not coming out of reserves.
Could I ask our fiscal director to come and help address that question? I want to make sure that we're giving you exactly the right information.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Mayor Gallego. So a portion of the raise that we're receiving organization-wide is going to be paid for with vacancy savings. We've had some higher paid positions. Those people leave those positions for retirement and other reasons. So that's why we're making up a number of it. And then we've requested some increased funding. That's an agenda item that's further down the road of STBG funding that would help kind of support some of the people that are paid with federal funds that work on specific programs.
Wonderful. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Gallego. Other comments on this agenda item? I'll volunteer my support for this. Obviously, we continue to see wage inflation be an issue and workforce be an issue that the government and MAG is subject to. So I support it, but I also support the flexibility that it gives. That a lot of the compensation needs to be addressed on a more individual basis. Different situations are. I mean, we need to allow for some flexibility for management to respond to the situation depending on the date of hire and so on. So I'm in support of that flexibility. The question was asked how this applies to the executive director. My recollection The last time that we approved the executive director's compensation and contract was for him to receive a raise that was the same as staff. And so my thought is if we're making adjustment to that, that's reflected as well in the executive director's compensation. Thoughts on that?
This is Les Peterson. I agree with you, Mayor Giles. I was one of them at the last executive committee meeting that said, we should be, let's keep an eye on what happens to this throughout the year. I mean, this may not be the end of it, but certainly these people, we want the best people. They are delivering what it is that we're asking them to. And I would fully support as that the executive director should fall within the parameters of this program as well. There's no reason to exclude him.
Mayor Giles, it's Ken Weiss.
Yes, Mayor Weiss.
I don't want to repeat Les's statement, but yeah, I agree. If you remember when we had a discussion about Eric's salary, it was to be no more and no less than what the employees were getting, and I don't see why that should change today.
All right. Anyone want to add anything more to that? This is on our agenda for an action item. Is there any additional discussion before we entertain a motion? If not, could I have a motion to approve an amendment to the fiscal year 2022-2023 biannual unified planning work program and budget to increase merit-based salary adjustments from an average of 2.5% to an average of 4% effective July 2022?
Mr. Chair, so moved.
Thank you, Mayor Weiss.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Thank you, Mayor Peterson. We have a motion and a second. Can I have a?
Excuse me, Sam Kaufman, just want to, if we could get a point of clarification, the changes you made to the executive director were made retroactive to his contract date. So the question is whether your current motion would hit the 1.5 go into effect the same time as staff, which I believe you just said would be July 1st.
Great question. Let's clarify that. I believe the intent of the subject, what I heard was that going forward, we wanted to treat Mr. Anderson effective, the same as the additional staff at MAG. So I'm not under the impression it was meant to be retroactive, but to be something that happens going forward, just like staff.
Sam, that was the degree of my motion. That was what I intended.
Thank you. Appreciate the clarification.
And I'll second the revised motion.
Thank you, Mayor Peterson. So we do have a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion on that motion? All right. For those who are present in the room, can I have a voice vote? All in favor, please say aye.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to explain my vote.
Yes, go ahead, Mayor Wires.
I'm going to be a no vote only because I still feel like my intent isn't being met. I don't think that we're, well, I certainly know that we're not where I thought we were going to be. It sounds like the rest of the committee all seems to agree with it. I don't. So I'm a no vote.
All right. Thank you for the clarification. Okay, but Shane, will you please take a roll call vote of those participating virtually?
Thank you, Chair and members of the Executive Committee. I will go down the list of members. Please unmute and indicate how you vote. Mayor Weiss?
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Peterson?
I vote yes.
Thank you. Mayor Hartke?
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor Hermosillo?
Yes.
Thank you. And Chair, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. Item 6 is an update on implementation of the Enterprise Resource Planning System. This item is on the agenda for information, discussion, and possible action to recess the meeting to conduct an executive session to discuss and consult with MAG's General Counsel concerning the status of the negotiations, contract procurement, and implementation of MAG's Enterprise Resource Planning System. Is there a question as to whether or not we need to convene an executive session, or is it understood that that's what we need to do to properly discuss this item?
We would propose, Mr. Chair, that someone make a motion for executive session. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Could I have a motion to go into executive session?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we adjourn to executive session.
Thank you, Mayor Wise. Is there a second?
Second, Mayor Hermosillo.
Thank you. Was that Mayor Hermosillo?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those, for those in the room, please give us a voice vote. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Are there any opposed? Thank you. Would you please do a roll call for those participating virtually?
Chair and members of the executive committee, I will go down the list of members. Please unmute and indicate how you vote. Mayor Weiss.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Peterson.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Hartke.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor Hermosillo.
Yes.
And Chair, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The motion carries.
All right, will someone give me the thumbs up when we're ready to continue the meeting? All right, thank you. We're now at agenda item 7, which is possible action on the implementation of the enterprise resource planning system. This item is on the agenda for action. Is there any, does any member of the committee wish to make a motion relative to this agenda item? All right, hearing none, we'll proceed with item 8 on our agenda. This is the legislative update. MAG Policy and Government Relations Director Nathan Pryor will give his report. Nathan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Executive Committee. Today I'll focus my brief comments on our state legislative effort, of course, Senate Bill 1356, the enabling legislation for the continuation of the half-cent sales tax for transportation investment in Maricopa County. Very similar to the last 2 presentations we heard from John McDonald at Transportation Policy Committee and Regional Council. We remain in that holding pattern with budget discussions ongoing. We do appreciate the continued outreach to House members by member agencies and the business community to ensure that 1356 does get a vote. Recent developments, we are the understanding that there could possibly be a bipartisan a budget. That remains to be seen. With that noted, however, we did contact MAG member agencies to reach out to key Democrats to keep 1356 top of mind in these conversations with the budget so that 1356 does receive a vote. So we'll remain vigilant on that and call for any action alerts to member agencies when that time is ready. Obviously, when budget discussions do fire up in earnest, things can move pretty quickly, so we'll be ready for that. I do want to note on May 5th, Governor Ducey did sign $400 million for I-10 investment through the Gila River Indian community. So a lot of bipartisan support went into that effort. I want to thank Mayor Hartke for attending the signing of that in his role as Transportation Policy Committee Chair. So thank you, Mayor Hartke. We're encouraged by the positive media attention on this issue. So obviously with 1356 focus on transportation investment, we hope that the signing of $400 million for I-10 translates into support for 1356 and ongoing investment in transportation. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my update. I do want to note that a little aside, today is Shane Schultz's last committee meeting. She's been a great intern at MAG. We appreciate all her work and look forward to her doing just great things moving forward in her professional career. So thank you for that privilege of note, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Nathan. Any questions from the membership for Nathan or other staff on our legislative status? All right, I will note that we continue to be in conversations with the legislative leadership, and it's kind of like a duck, it looks like nothing's happening, but there's a lot of paddling going on under the water, and I think there's still plenty of reason for optimism. All right, item 9 is a request for future agenda items. Are there any future agenda items from the membership? Hearing none, item 10 is comments and announcements from the membership. Anyone wish to make an announcement?
Mayor Giles?
Yes, Mayor Hartke.
I just wanted to thank MAG as well for the extremely important role with the widening of I-10. That was an excellent gathering, and I'm encouraged also by being able to be with mayors and city managers and key business leaders in DC last week to further the agenda of our region, and whether that's securing funds for the widening of I-10 or other related things. That was an excellent time and time well spent. So I want to thank everyone in this room and particularly MAG staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Hartke. Any other comments or announcements? Hearing none, our business is concluded and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you all.